Sunday afternoon, big day in the NFL, and I'm here with my man Chuck Esposito from the Venetian and the Palazzo. As we said, we're at one of the nice suites here at Lagasse Stadium. We're living it up a little bit, but we have to get to some hardcore numbers because we got a big day featuring Chuck's big-time team from Chicago as the 6-3 Bears play host to the 4-5 San Diego Chargers. You take a look at this game, two teams headed in opposite directions. San Diego drops a heartbreaker 24-17 to the Raiders last week. They're coming in on extended rest, but they've now dropped 4 straight. On the flip side, Chicago pounds the Detroit Lions 37-13 on national TV. They've won 4 straight. Look at the line. Bears open around 4. Game still around 3.5, 4 right now, so the Bears have a slight edge. Let me just lead right off with this. And you can gloat a little bit about your Bears because you still owe me from the Eagles game. But
no, you still owe me from the Eagles game.
You owe me trash talk, I owe you lunch. But any chance the Chargers turn it around and go in here and beat Chicago? Because they're red hot right now.
I think they can. I mean, as you said, these two teams are trending in opposite directions. But maybe this is a little bit of a trap game for the Bears. They come off back-to-back conference wins. They beat the Eagles on Monday night. They beat the Lions. They're 6-3 right now. They're tied with the Lions in that wild card spot. This could be a tough game for them against the Chargers. I really think it's one of those trap games to look at. I like the battle between Cutler and Rivers. When Cutler was a Denver Bronco, these two guys jawed a lot off the field. One memorable game where they were really going at it. Heavy off the field. Rivers had his number at that time. The Bears are playing well. I think the key here is going to be if they can put pressure on Rivers. That Charger offensive line is decimated by injuries. The Bears have a few injuries as well, but if the Bears put pressure on him, I think they can get after him. But look for Rivers to look for Jackson and Vincent Brown and dump off the Gates a lot. The Bears struggle with teams that have that big tight end. So in that cover two, there's a lot of open space there. When they play the Packers, you see Jermichael Finley open a lot in that 10 to 15 yard range. That could be the case with Gates. I think it is a little bit of a trap. I think that number comes down by kickoff, but the Bears are red hot as we speak.
Now that actually, you got ahead of me here because that was going to be my next question. What goes into the thought of it being a trap game? We saw Baltimore coming off the big win against Pittsburgh, and then they go to Seattle, they fall into a trap. So when we look at this, why would the Bears fall into a trap? You're obviously a well-coached game, but what goes into something like that?
Well, I think you look at the entire league, and we know on any given week, anybody can beat anybody. There's so much parity there. It really is a Jekyll and Hyde league from week to week. And I think you look at the Bears and those 2 emotional wins, knowing they had to beat Philadelphia on prime time. They were almost a double-digit underdog that night. No one gave them a chance, outside of me and knowing that I was going to get a good lunch from you. No one really gave them a chance. They come away with a big victory there. Then still a lot of doubters against Detroit. You know, are they good enough to beat Detroit? And they go in there and then they beat Detroit at home. They don't just beat Detroit, they pummel them with 6 turnovers, 4 INTs.
So you get
a little bit full of yourself. I mean, you are a good team. I think the Chargers have probably been one of the bigger disappointments in the entire NFL. I don't know about you, Joe, but I can't think of one really marquee win that they have this year. I really can't.
It certainly wasn't Minnesota in week 1.
They started 4-1. They beat a lot of the lesser teams early, got off to a hot start compared to their usual slow start, but they've lost 4 in a row. I think it's a much bigger game for the Chargers, even though it's out of conference. That's why I think you look at it a little bit of a trap, and the extra rest bodes well. But when we look at a trap game, we don't necessarily look at a trap game wins and losses. It's about the point spread. Can the Chargers cover? And I think if when the number opened up, it was a little high. There may have been some value there with the Chargers getting more than a field goal.
How much weight should we put on something like trends? For example, San Diego, 22-8-3 in their last 33 games as an underdog. So clearly they have thrived in this role. But as we've seen this year, they're not doing very well in that role. So if it's not applying now, should we still take a look at something like that, or should we pass it over?
No, I think you can still look at it, absolutely. I mean, I look at trends all the time to see how teams do against each other. I mean, look at the Packers, for an example. I know we're not talking about that game, but this is a team that is 12-3 against a number of their last 15 games, have won all 15 games, but Aaron Rodgers is 0-2 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you just think about those things going in, and maybe that number is
on record. The Bucs will win this weekend.
They won't win, but they just might cover that number, guys.
That's a huge number, too. I mean, the New England one's big, that one's big as well. Talk about the total a little bit. 2 teams that can score some points. Chicago, 26.3 a game, 6th in the NFL. San Diego, 24 a game, 13th in the NFL. 7th overall offense, almost 400 yards a game. Bears defense is playing well. San Diego's defense has been playing awful. So from a fantasy perspective, we could probably expect to see a little bit out of Cutler and his boy Earl Bennett, who's been great the last 2 weeks.
It's been a huge benefit to have Bennett back, and just having Forte again. They dump the ball more than I've ever seen a Bear team in the past. And Forte's having a phenomenal year. I think it's a great matchup with these two teams. They both have talented weapons on offense. But again, I love the Cutler-Rivers matchup just to see where that goes as the game progresses.
So you don't really, do you think this could be a defensive struggle, or do you think these two teams get after it a little bit and put some points up on the board?
On paper, I think it's a defensive struggle, but I think they do get after it. I think they put some points on the board. The Bears just don't win, even though they win ugly in many cases, they're not winning ugly with low-scoring games.
Right.
Almost every game of late is over as a high-scoring game, and I think you'll see that trend continue here on Sunday in one of the late games.
How would you feel if your Bears won a wild card spot and had to go to San Francisco?
I'd have no problem with it at all. Jim Harbaugh against the Bears, you gotta love it.
Great stuff as always, Chuck. Thank you very much. Enjoy the content, everyone. Enjoy Sunday afternoon. We'll be back on Monday for the Kansas City Chiefs New England Patriots preview. Have a good one.